It seemed as though that was a permanent condition of mine because when I was a little boy, they said to me, "You're trying to be fresh." So I've stayed that way.
Oh
So I've,
wow.
I've I've stayed that way.
Well,
It's
we're
good to have,
getting so many. Yes, go ahead.
no, it's good to have a little levity because everything that's serious, really serious, is going on around the people in this country. And the more I look at this legislation, the more abhorred I become because first of all, let me deal with national insurance ones. There are two pieces: the national insurance and then the pensions amendments. Government had two goals for the national insurance. One, to be able to control the jobs in national insurance so they can give jobs to their friends. Because let me explain. If you are working in the public service, there's something called the Public Service Qualification Order. And you have to have the qualifications in that order to take a particular post. Now, I know of people who work in statutory boards and other government companies who didn't have the commensurate qualifications that they have in the public service. But the qualifications
Hmm.
order only applies to civil servants, not statutory boards and not the government companies. So even though a company could, or statutory board might have qualifications for a job, you don't have, they're not enforceable. You can decide, well, okay, I don't care what the qualifications say, I will hire this person. As I've seen, I can tell there was one general manager of a corporation in Barbados, National Housing Corporation. He went into that corporation that needed degrees and all kind of stuff. But the only thing he left school with, as I said, was his empty lunch box. He didn't have any qualifications whatsoever. But because these qualifications are not enforceable, then you can put them in. In the public service, you can't do that. So what they are trying to do with the national insurance is to make sure that the board, National Insurance Board, can hire people. Before, our Barrow, in his wisdom, decided, I don't want the National Insurance Board dealing with personnel issues. I want them to concentrate on managing the fund. Let the experts in personnel deal with the personnel issues. So at Section 11 of the National Insurance and Social Security Act, it says that these people are deemed to be public officers, and the minister responsible for public service will determine the amount of posts. That's how it's done in the public service. So
Hmm.
the people working at national insurance are public officers, even though national insurance itself is already a board. So when they're talking about they're going to corporatize it and make it a board, it is already a board. And everything that they put in the new legislation, the new amendments, can be achieved under the old ones. So the only
Right.
difference that the old legislation has from the new one is that National Insurance Board can now hire people. And with that, you can bring people, but only the empty lunch box because you can bring in whoever you want. No training in national insurance business, no qualifications, anything. You can bring them in, and that is what the boards can do. That was one aspect of it.
Hmm.
The other aspect of that now is to after crashing the national insurance scheme or have it and their collapse, they want you to pay for their errors, their blunders, their mistakes, their um, graph, whatever it is, because and I can keep repeating this because I was on that pensions committee that was reviewing national insurance and pensions rather
Hmm.
back in 1989, and it was determined then by an actuarial report that national insurance fund will go bust by 2035 if nothing happens. You have to fix it. You have to do something to get more reserves into the fund. Mind you, I was of a contrary view. At that time, I was saying, well, you said 2035. And I was telling the committee all the time, but look, I'm still a very young man. You need more people. And I was willing to volunteer to give them some help to get some more people, but nobody took me on with that one. Because you had 35 years to do something about it. And by this time these people have been 34, 33, that kind of stuff, and they would be working in jobs. The problem is that you might not have jobs for them. But that would have been another issue. So So what happened? It was coming up to elections in 1989, 1991 period, and the then Prime Minister decided he ain't touching that stuff because he don't want to put political side. So it fell upon Owen Arthur to come into office and move with gusto to fix the National Insurance and Social Security scheme and the fund.
Like
What
he
Arthur
should. I
did,
mean, because he went in there to serve the people. So he
yes.
should.
So what he did, he changed the pension formula so that when you calculate what your pension would be, you would get less pension than you would have been entitled to under the old calculation. That means more money was stay in the fund. He raised the contribution rate, and he then raised also the maximum insurable earnings, meaning that the people at the top would extend it so that more people would be captured or more money would be captured in to the fund. That was working well. And then the fund was improving, showing its worth. Again, politicians can't help themselves. Once they see money, they're going to put their hands on it. And the biggest problem with national insurance, and will remain the biggest problem with national insurance, I don't care what dispensation you have or what rules you do, unless you take the minister out of national insurance decision making. I'm talking about investments of the fund, because they can invest and they have invested in things that national insurance shouldn't have invested in, and things that national insurance should invest in, they stay away from. Like, for instance, national insurance had shares in Light and Power. And you know, Light and Power, they make enough money all the time. You will always want lights, and they sold them. And then put the money back to get 0.1% interest. That's another issue for another time. But what the government has been doing is to be abusing the National Insurance Fund. I remember when I was a member of the Senate, and an issue came up about building a fire station using National Insurance funds. I complained bitterly, and I was assured 2 years ago that the National Insurance Fund was capable of handling it. They were washing funds and all kind of stuff, which was not necessarily the truth, but they were saying that to just counter what they were saying, because building a fire station has nothing to do with national insurance. So national insurance has built police stations. They have built they're building a fire station. They built the building at Warren. But two buildings at Warren. One building where the electoral office is on top of the hill there in Warren. And then they've also built the Bob Towers. All of this is out of national insurance funds. They're saying now that the government will rent those buildings from national insurance. I don't know if they're paying the rent, but I know government is not used to paying bills. As a matter of fact, they already took 1.2 or 1.3 million dollars out of the national insurance fund. Then they said they're going to give it that haircut. Remember when the government decided they're going to not pay their debts and write off on loans? Their national insurance was in jeopardy then. And why would you then take over $1 billion out of the national insurance fund when it was in jeopardy? And it was in jeopardy to your certain knowledge. They didn't care, because you know what they know they will do? They will go and take advantage of the people who have been paying into the fund. Now, let me explain something to you. What will happen to people like that? You pay the national insurance fund, and you know that you have contributions that you will get your pension, because you only need 500 contributions. You immigrated. You want to work in Russia, Bali, Singapore, wherever you feel it going. Because you know your old age, if nothing happens and you don't make it big, you can still come back to Barbados and live on your pension. Now you got to come back to Barbados and work for 4 years, almost 5, or not, you will lose that pension. You will not get a pension. This is what they have done. They have raised the amount of contributions from 500 to 750. This is going to put a lot of people in jeopardy. And then
a lot of people.
Because I worked at National Insurance myself, and I have sat there and seen people who had 499 contributions didn't get a pension. Mind you, it don't work so for politicians. Once the politicians short for a couple of weeks, they change the law, so they can get theirs. But what is horrendous about the politicians and the pension service and the pensions in the public service is that they have the best arrangements anywhere in the world. Politicians in Barbados have to serve 8 years to qualify for a pension. That pension is half of their salary. But you don't always have to be in the House. Because if you remember the Senate not getting a salary, and then you go into the House, those years that you didn't contribute to your pension scheme, if they add those 2 years, the ones in the House and the ones in the Senate, you will still get a pension at half the salary you have gotten.
Mhm.
But they do that for each other. So you have taken a situation where politicians make sure they feather their nest, and they're wetting everybody else's nest. You know, when you didn't want the fowls to hatch, you throw water in the nest. Well, this is the government doing with us.
Yes.
No people. They're wetting our nest. They're keeping theirs warm and good, and they're feathering it, but they are holding on to pensions. Look, they take 8 years to get a pension. To qualify for a pension, 8 years. Public officers have to wait for 10 years to qualify for a pension. But the politicians qualify for half their salary after 8 years, while the public servant qualifies for 1/5 of their salary after 10 years. It gets worse. Don't shake your head yet. It gets even worse. 33 and the 30 years. You know, you always hear people talking about, oh, I got my 33 and the 30 years. All that is really is the time that you will qualify for your maximum pension. Politicians qualify for their maximum pension at 12 years. 12 years for the politician, 33 and a third for the other people. The other people in the public service at statutory boards is 40 years. Yes, yeah, I tell you, you're looking shocked. You have to work 40 years to qualify for the maximum pension, while MPs have to work 12. If you call what to work. Right? And they have now extended people's retirement age on to 68, while they had reduced theirs back in 89 from 55 to 50. So their ages keep coming down, while the civil servants and the government workers at statutory boards will keep going up. And you know, when I challenged Colin Jordan on that on brass tacks, he said that, oh, the Prime Minister is thinking about raising it. Well, think about raising yours first.
that you know, hold a minute there, Mr. Franklin. That's what I was saying today. I sat and I thought about it. I said, if you care about people, you saw what we just did, what we just went through in COVID. So many people lost their jobs. A lot of people lost their businesses. People are it's tough out here, Mr. Franklin. Very, very tough. If you have your ears to the ground and you're coming with such a measure, don't you think you should lead by example? The first thing, the bill that you should bring out here is something. It is the one that is affecting you. You should have yours all the way down to the 68 like everybody else. And I guarantee you, if they came out with that first, people would be upset, but not as upset as they are right now. You know, yeah. Go ahead, sir. Okay, you're muted. Yeah. Okay. Hold a minute. Go repeat because you were muted. Go ahead, sir.
I said I wouldn't be upset at all. My problem would be solved because I was saying they are in it with us.
Yes.
But look, I'll give you an example a bit outside of what we're dealing with now. A couple of years ago, the Comptroller of Customs and Chief Immigration Officer contacted me to say that they wanted to discuss security at the ports and stuff. And I went on to the meeting and they were claiming that they want to do lie detector tests. And I said to them, I have no difficulty with lie detector tests, but we're going to start at the top. If you want the customs officer to take a lie detector test, you ask the cabinet to take them first, because they have more opportunity to be corrupt than any customs officer. You know, they may get back to me yet.
So you told him to start at the top.
Yeah,
Right.
start at the top.
They want to bring a lie
Lead by
detector.
example.
Lead by example. Lead by example. Nobody can ask for anything, other than that, better than that. Lead by example. And that's what they didn't do in this situation, guys. And that's why we need to go make sure that you're part of the island-wide sicko tomorrow. And this notion that people are putting up that, they're scared and they might get fired and etc etc. I want you to address that a little later in the program, but that is not true. Go ahead, Mr. Franklin, please.
I can deal with it now, because I think I don't want to miss. I don't want to let it slip by. Because things have a way of passing. I'll tell you. I listened to Brass Stocks today, and I heard the concerns about people gonna have to get sick certificates and all kind of crap like that. If you were sick on Friday and you call in sick on Friday, you will be deemed to be sick till you get back to work. So if you call in sick on Friday, you'll be treated as being on sick leave Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, if you call in sick on Wednesday. So if you call in sick on Wednesday and you were sick on Friday last week, all those days will be treated as sick leave. But that is not the case if you were not sick on Friday and you call in sick only on Wednesday. The other thing that people are trying to scare people about is that they're saying, well, if you don't think they will not pay you because you did not come, and the law says that you would get paid if you don't work before the bank holiday and after the bank holiday. That is again not true. There's no such law. What happened there is that during agreements with the union, BW, when they used to function, encourage companies in their collective agreements to do that, to pay people who were on these bank holidays if they were working the day before the bank holiday and coming to work the day after. That was a union agreement that applies to people who are members of the union under a contract that says so. Most other employers do not follow that. I was at a store, a shop, I'm not going to call the name, the last set of bank houses that we had, and the cashier, somebody mentioned to the cashier that they are going to have a happy bank holiday and all kinds of stuff. You guys have a happy bank holiday? I know nonsense what they're doing, because we are already paid and we don't get paid for bank holidays. So people walk around the place spreading a lot of false information, trying to, rather than get the government to deal with the issue, they get their minions to come in and try to demonize me. I'm tired of people of that nonsense, because they have not achieved it so far. I don't take it on. So they can find something else. Up to today, I saw something that said that I'm a member of the Barbers Labour Party, on Facebook. They're doing everything possible to try to hold me up in a bad light. No, the BLP people think that being a member of the Barbers Labour Party is a bad thing. All right? So they are trying to, they're sure that that's a bad thing. I was a member of the Barbers Labour Party years ago.
I mean, come on, it's a small country, it's a very small country. It's only two major parties. So you're either part of one or the other. Come on, we need to get with it and stop behaving like it's
I have not been a member of the
something.
Labour Party since during the after time. But of course, now they want to say that, I misleading people. And so they are, but mind you, my point is that they are trying to make out that being a member of the Barbers Labour Party is a bad thing. Now, if it's a bad thing for trade unionists, it has to be a bad thing for Tony Moore. It has to be a bad thing for the young lady at Kimberly, whatever the name is, at NUPW. So if it is bad for me, and I'm not a member, why shouldn't it be a bad thing for them? Because I don't know if Tony Moore was in the house, but she could not sit down with a straight face in the house and say that these badges are good for the workers of this country. Nowhere. You know, another aspect of this thing that is troubling, going back to the public service pensions, you are not going to be required to pay part of your salary into your pension fund administered by national insurance. And your pension will be paid from that. That is what the IMF asked to do for years. The
Mm.
IMF was saying to them, no, they got to make people pay toward these pensions and stuff. And so the IMF got its way. This is what this is all about. But what they did and what they don't, and what they're actually making sure that you don't get any pension, you know. Because what
Mm-hmm.
happens, right? If you start working after the 1st of September 1974, any pension you get from the government will be reduced by the amount you get from national insurance. And so only the people at the top will continue to get something because national insurance pension usually wipes out the pension that you will get from the treasury for people at the lower levels, below $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not working for $5,000, when you apply for pension from national insurance and you get your government pension, the government pension will be cancelled out. So you will get nothing. You will be paying into a pension scheme that will not give you any pension. This is what this government is doing to you.
Mm. Mm. So what is it that we want? You know, we said we're gonna be doing the sick out tomorrow. What is it that we want? Is it that we are saying to the senators and those who, if you know a senator, if you know any of those senators, please send them the link to the show. Please send them this link. This show is designed for them to hear what the people are saying and the concerns of the people. What are we
No,
saying to the senator? Yes, go ahead, Caswell.
look, the senators, there are 21 senators in Barbados.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, two would be appointed by the leader of the opposition, and the government appoint 12, that's 7 or so, would be then appointed by the president. But because we don't have any opposition, the president is allowed to appoint two more. But they can never outvote the people who are not appointed by the prime minister as senators on their recommendation are always in the majority in the Senate. The only time the Senate can stand up is if they're going to amend the Constitution, because then they need the support of people from the opposition or the independent senators or both to pass it, because you need 2/3 of the membership in the Senate. And they don't have that. That is why the Integrity and Public Life Bill wasn't put to the vote last time. But mind you, they're saying that the senators blocked it. The senators didn't block it. They heard inklings from some senators that saying I ain't supporting it. Not that anybody got up on the floor and said that they were not doing it, and the government withdrew it. So they never put it to the vote. They never tested it. And they didn't have, because when the vote was put, there were not enough people to pass it. It would have failed anyhow. The government wants that bill to fail and then blame on somebody else because they don't want to declare their assets. See, because there were 13 people in the House. And you need 14 people to vote yes to pass a constitutional amendment in the Senate. But they didn't have 14 people in the House.
Hmm.
So if you didn't have 14 people, why did
Why
you
did
ask
you
for the question?
exactly? But
Because
they
you didn't
seem to,
want it
to
to pass.
always be playing these games, you know.
Yeah.
But tomorrow, this is a very very serious thing. Now you're saying that from what you're saying, it seems as though this thing, because of the numbers are against us. So what are we really saying here?
So
Um,
we are trying to sensitize the government that the people of this country do not support these measures for a number of reasons, but mainly because they were not brought to them and said, well, look, this is what we plan to do. You are not dealing with idiots. The people of this country are educated to the most part and understand things. So if you are going to bring something for my benefit, tell me what it is. Let me explain it to me so I can feel good when I say, but you know something, the government got a point. Even though I don't like it, but I can see them, nothing's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen. They are trying to hide this thing. This these two bills will take effect on the 1st of January 2024. Okay? Listen to the date. 1st of January 2024. You're going to give the country a month to debate this thing around the population. You had to pass it in an emergency type setting in one day in the House, and then come and try to do the same thing in the Senate. Huh? Why is it so important to pass it and then put it down to wait? Because they were going to pass, they would have passed it on Friday, and you had Saturday, Sunday, bank holidays were jumping up and that kind of stuff. Nobody would be worried about what's going on in the House or the Senate. So it was carefully designed because why you had a Senate, why you had a House session on Friday? You met on Tuesday. There's no state of emergency. There's nothing that you have to do with a deadline. Yeah, the deadline is the 1st of January 2024, so you rush into it. In July, you got August, September, October,
Mm-hmm.
November, December. 5 months.
So you're saying because I heard you made this point before, and I think Miss McLean also made the point that they normally meet on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And is that it? And so, but they went ahead and they met again on the Friday before the bank holiday. And one Barbadian said, "Listen to this, listen. This is not any conspiracy theory. Listen carefully, and let me just bring in Miss McLean on this. Miss McLean, um, who has been in government. And as I said last night, we are not here promoting any political party because, as far as I'm concerned, this is the what where we're at is a result of all the years. The problem is how these are dealing with it right now. That's the issue. So, Miss McLean, what Mr. Franklin is saying. Can you shed any more light on that? Do you agree with what he's saying? Can you
In ter-
concur?
in terms of what exactly, I want to be sure what aspect of what he's
Yeah,
saying.
yes. In terms of the fact that they would normally meet on Tuesday, why
Okay.
is it a normal thing to meet on Tuesday?
It
And
is, yeah. Okay. Yes, it is a normal thing to meet on Tuesday. Parliament meets on Tuesdays. That is the House of Assemblies. The Senate meets on Wednesdays, typically the week after to debate a particular matter. And it is not unusual to meet on other days, but what is very unusual is, and if I note what Caswell was saying, that you're passing legislation which effectively takes effect, which goes into place in the first instance. The pension amendment bill, which relates to the public servants, applies to those persons who go into office from the 1st of January 2024, right? The other one you're talking about, and it was interesting that I heard the Minister of Labor come on the radio after hearing your program or being informed about it to say that these changes are going to take effect over time. But there's so much more to this. As I listened to Mr. Franklin this afternoon on brass tacks, and I've done some research, and I hope I'll get a chance to speak to those things. The long and short of it is there is no need, or there was, and there is no need to rush this legislation in the way they did unless they were trying to avoid a serious debate. And let me explain what I'm saying to you. As I listened to the debate and I observed what was going on in Parliament, you are passing two pieces of legislation which have which are important. And I think I made this point on this program, and I certainly made the point today with Mr. Blackman on the radio. Two pieces of legislation that will impact every single worker in Barbados now. But between the two of them, one is it going to impact the public servants twice, and the other one, other workers. The government purported to go to the public and as they say, consult widely on this national insurance revitalization. I was trying to pull up some information on that as I was listening, but I'll go back to that and I can hopefully find that and tell you. So they say they had gone and consulted. Now, if I consult widely and you're trying to get inputs from the public, don't you go back to the public and share what you have distilled from what they said? And because you're going to distill that in part in the form, in part of the form would be legislation, share the draft legislation with the public, get their feedback. How do I know that anything that anybody said or suggested appears in any of this? Now, so first of all, there should be consultation, multiple consultations to solicit inputs, the incorporation of those inputs into legislation or any other policy that you're proposing, and you share that with the public, okay? And they can say, okay, I've looked at the legislation. This does not represent. Sorry, I'm just distracted by somebody saying, Maxine, those are speeches, not debates. I'm not sure what it was, but I'll try not to be distracted. What the debate would come. I've just lost my train of thought by looking at what Pedro said, but I'll try to come back.
What he's saying,
I was making a speech or something. Okay,
no,
but
no. What he's saying is that what they do in Parliament, because there's no opposition.
Speeches. Okay,
they don't
and
debate.
I will come to that. I understand now. I understand. So the point is that they went to the public, supposedly soliciting inputs. And for some reason, they rushed into Parliament. And I want to say something about the process, because the process, and Caswell would have heard my thoughts on this. I think I might have shared a bit of it with you before, and I've shared some more in this afternoon. But if you are serious about what you're doing, why is it that in relation to the National Insurance Amendment Bill, why is it that this bill was first introduced on the 25th, which would have been Tuesday, and you had the first and second reading on the 28th, which was Friday, for matters that, according to Minister Colin Jordan on the news since your program on Sunday and yesterday, he is saying that these changes will be implemented as far as a decade out. So what's the big rush? Are you trying not to debate? And the interesting thing, Marcia, I will put this on the table. I might be all over the place because there's so many things here. How many members of Parliament, given that the government controls 30 seats, how many of them sat through these debates? One. How many of them contributed to the debates? Two. And to what end? Because I took the time to go and watch the debate. And what I realized was that, to me, there was none. There were not even speeches of any. I have to go and see exactly how many, but I can recall hearing very much. And I know the media carried a clip from the Prime Minister, but I noticed that when I watched, for example, Mr. Minister, what's his name, Strawn, I did not see the Prime Minister present. In fact, it forced me, and I'm happy you put it up. If you could expand it at some point. I sat and listened to that session, which was 43 minutes. And in listening to that session, you had 43 minutes, which went from a discussion of the pension amendment bill,
Go
ahead, please.
Which related to the pension amendment bill, which talked about the contribution, the public officers being employed after the 1st of January 2024, having to make contributions of between 2% and 5%. But of that 40-something minutes that you had there, Minister Strong got up. He spoke a bit about the contribution of Mr. Jordan, and I will have to come back to that. He then made his contribution. He lauded Mr. Jordan for his ministerial statement. He then went on to say a little bit, but in all, he spent, and I looked at the time, the clip shows you the time when he started and so on, and I looked at the time, and he did not spend even 15 minutes on the pension amendment bill.